Gideon Davidson, 2 carries. Well, he finally got the ball put in his hands twice. But this would have been a great game for him to cut his teeth in.
I think that kind of goes back to my point saying, here's Cliff again. You can't put him in down 16, nothing.
It's around the ball, it's around the ball, Clemson podcast. It's around the ball, it's around the ball, Clemson podcast. It's around the ball.
All right, welcome to another episode of Around the Paw. I'm Garrett Mitchell along with Cole Gerard and Caden Hughes. And is everybody back off the edge of the cliff? Good, great, wonderful, because I think that there was a point on Saturday afternoon, all three of us were probably standing at the precipice. Guys, welcome back from the Twilight Zone. That's all I've got to say. That's the only way I can describe that first half against Troy.
Yeah, what an odd Saturday in Death Valley. It all started with the lightning delay as well, kind of made things weird. And I told my buddy I was sitting with it, really reminded me of the 2021 Georgia Tech game because we all remember that slugfest. But, playing Troy, we all remember the last 3 times Troy's came here. 2011, we were losing at halftime. 2016, we won the national championship, won by 4. I just knew it was going to be a weird day. I didn't know the lightning delay and all that was going to come with it. But I just, after last weekend, said, watch Troy come in here and play. It's tough and kind of means something to them. But escape with a win. 1-1, got a big game coming up.
I'm incredibly disappointed. I think we looked terrible, and it was we'll talk more about it and stuff. But the lightning delay came, and then we played exhausted, or we played terribly the entire game. But
and this is Cliff's in the background, and I'm sure I might make him chuckle at this, but I was probably being a bit hyperbolic after the LSU game when I told him that Clemson's going to lose to Troy. And I told him, I said, you mind what I say? I said, we're going to lose to Troy. I don't think I really truly believed that when I said it, but looking back in hindsight, I texted him probably late in the second quarter on Saturday, and I'm like, didn't I tell you? I cannot believe we came that precariously close, Cole, to my prediction being true.
That would have been crazy. Definitely would have been a lot of. I probably would have deleted Twitter if that would have happened for sure, because I would have had a lot of mentions definitely would have had a lot of mentions, not only just from college football fans, but our in-state rivals down the road in Columbia. But like I said, escape with a win. Wasn't pretty in no means. The first half was embarrassing. I stuck it out all 4 quarters, stayed the whole game, told myself I was not leaving. I was gonna stay. And, I'm glad to see him come out there in the second half and, hold Troy scoreless in the second half. I think that was the biggest thing you needed to do, was not give up a single point in the second half. And they did that. Went down there 5 straight scoring drives. Ended the day well. But the first half was just disgusting. And I hope we never see that again. But it's any given Saturday in college football. Anybody can come into your place and beat you. And I hate that that's the standard nowadays, but it's where we're at in college football.
I told my friends I have a series of bets I do where if Clemson loses to blank, I'll do blank and stuff. I like to do that with a couple of my friends and stuff. The LSU one was mild because it's a bigger opponent. I just said I'd jump into the pool at my apartment complex that night around 3 a.m. and stuff, and that was an easy one. But I said if Clemson loses to Troy, I'll transfer to Troy for a semester. So I'm glad I didn't have to do that, because I kind of just threw that one in there thinking it'd be a pretty easy matchup. But then by the end of the first half, I was like, man, I'm about to have to back out of a bet or take a pretty big tuition hit. Have to make a pretty tough call to my mom. So I'm glad we escaped with the win. But it was a brutal game for sure.
Oh man, that I tell you what, in the world of anything can happen, that was a pretty bold bet to make right there. But look, I'm glad you didn't have to pack. I'm glad you didn't have to pack your bags and go off over there for a semester too. But
get to watch Goose for a semester though. Maybe it would have been a little better, but we'll see. I don't know.
Well, see, if you'd had to do that and you got over there and they found out where you had transferred from, I don't think you would have lived it down for that entire semester. You would have called.
Oh my gosh.
100%.
Yeah. I'd be the laugh of the tiny school there. I'd be the biggest story they've ever had for sure.
Man, well, we let's break down a little bit about how we even got to have to talk about this and why things went sideways the way they did in the first half. And Cole, I think it goes back and it harkens back to what we saw in the LSU game. One of the big storylines coming out of that one was that Clemson completely abandoned the run. And it seemed like, despite all of the lip service that Dabo Swinney said, that he took responsibility for it. We've got to commit to the run. It looked like in the first 2 quarters that we were following the same script, that the coaches were following the same script. They simply refused to commit to the run, and predictably, it put the passing game in some tough situations. And again, we saw the offensive line and Cade struggle against a far inferior defensive front. I mean, with all due respect to Troy, let's call a spade a spade. There's no way that Troy defensive line and defensive front should have been able to mash a grape against Clemson, but yet there we were.
Yeah. I think it all starts off with, we didn't start off hot with the run game in the first half, but, Adam Randall did finish 21 carries for 112 yards. Give him that. But I think with the decisions making for our first couple of drives was because of that Troy opening touchdown and the busted coverage. And then go back to watch Coach Swinney's post game. He said it was on the coaching staff because they didn't recognize the running back had shifted out wide, and they didn't catch it, so they didn't call the timeout. And there it was, right, wide open touchdown to the running back, who was probably the fastest guy I've ever seen. That kid's fast. But yeah, it seemed like it was a lot of conservative trying to get that run game started in the first half. But I'm glad to see Adam, catch some confidence and finish strong.
Yeah, and Caden, it's funny, once Clemson came out of the locker room at halftime and they committed to the run game, lo and behold, it worked. And Adam Randall, just as Cole just said it, he had a huge second half, and he had a big run right out of the gate. I think it was probably 35, 40 yards, something in that neighborhood. And once he broke that one big run, it really seemed like that kind of opened the floodgates, and the offense just flowed better. And the success in the run game in the second half, lo and behold, it opened up the passing game, and Cade finished 18 of 24. Bryant Wesco had a big afternoon, ended up having a big afternoon. It's amazing what all you could do offensively once the run game gets established.
It was great to see, and it was great to see us, like you said, be able to establish the run and what it opened up for the passing game. I will say though, and I hope this ages really poorly, I came out of this game very disappointed in the run game in general. I think that we finally were able to expose the weakness in Troy as a team in general, with them being such an inferior opponent. But I think Adam Randall, just the way he moves, maybe it's just him as a former receiver, it's going to take a little more time than I'm expecting. He's experienced. He looks very powerful. He's obviously has good hands for a receiver out of the back or running back out of the backfield. But the first step isn't fully there for him, and the lateral agility, I haven't fully seen it. And I'm a little worried about bigger, more shifty and agile defensive fronts being able to catch him. And so I think that there might be a little 2 yards in a cloud of dirt with him throughout the rest of this season. He broke away a couple times, but I feel like 4 receivers on this Clemson roster could have transitioned to running back today and had the breakaway runs he had. I don't know if as a running back, I'm still a little disappointed in what I've seen. Obviously, just 2 games into it, so it's not. And again, I hope this ages very poorly, but I'm still pretty scared of the running game right now. But I did like seeing Cade look a little more comfortable when we had a running game for sure.
Right, and Cole, we talked about this coming out of the LSU game, and I'm going to harp on it again. Gideon Davidson, 2 carries. Well, he finally got the ball put in his hands twice. But this would have been a great game for him to cut his teeth in and to see what he could do. And once again, he only gets 2 carries. And unless I'm blind and read the stat sheet wrong, Eazy-E, David, as you mate, didn't even touch the ball.
You didn't.
This would have been the perfect game to see what some of these guys could do.
Yeah.
And yet they are not being given a chance. And it seems as if they're going to ride Adam Randall, to the end of the road, even if it's a dead end.
I kind of have to disagree with you there, just because, we're saying what if, and this would be in the game for Gideon Davidson to get all these carries. But you got to look how the game was going. We were down. Clemson was down 16-0 at one point. And that's not a point in time where you try to get your freshman running back, carries. And I think it would have been good to get him in there, but that's not when you're trying to get him all this experience. So I think you got to ride with your RB1 and Adam Randall there. And like when Caden said, the mobility and stuff like that, I can see that and agree with that as well. But I'm just glad he ended on a good note. But when you're down 16-0, you can't be looking to get guys experience.
Yeah, Caden, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and it's a good point, Cole, and I don't disagree with that at all. But if I'm going to play devil's advocate here, if you're looking just at the first 2 quarters on Saturday and it was a wash, rinse, and repeat of the first game and nothing is working, then I would even revert back to my original point that if it's not working with Adam Randall, then keep flipping over any card you have until you find one that will play. And I would have made the same argument then, but Cole, like I said, look, it worked out. Adam Randall ended up with, I believe, 21 carries for, I think, just shy of 100, maybe 112 yards. And he ended up with a very good game. And I'm glad that it worked out that way. But, I would still like to see a little bit more variety going forward in the run game.
Yeah.
We put in Vizina for a rushing carry at one point in the game on a 3rd down. We didn't put in Keith Adams. We didn't put in Ezio, David E. And we put in Gideon for two rushes. I mean, yeah, I fully agree with you. Like a college team should only give a running back that many carries or that much of a percentage of the carries when it's like an established blue chip running back. Like that's like numbers that like Wisconsin does or like Alabama did with Derrick Henry and stuff. Like even like Phil Maffa, we still had a little bit of a semblance of a committee with Jay Haynes last year. That's more than what we saw in this game. And like Adam Randall, he's a veteran player, but he's brand new to the running back position, and he can be a part of a committee, but he should not be the workhorse back for Clemson, like in any game.
Right, and I'm going to. We've got Anthony and Cliff dropping some comments in, and I'm going to address a couple of them. Anthony said that he heard that Gideon just isn't ready, and you know what? I'm one of these. Maybe it's old school, maybe it's an archaic way of thinking about things, but I'm somebody that believes you're never going to truly be ready unless you get real world experience. How is he ever? You don't just get ready in practice. That it just doesn't happen. You've got to get real world, real live game reps. And I'll even use it. I'll give this analogy. It's like when you go out and apply for a job and you go in for an interview and they're like, well, you've got a really great resume. We really like what you bring to the table. Unfortunately, you just don't have any experience. Well, how are you going to get experience unless somebody gives you a chance to actually get it?
I think that goes back. I think that kind of goes back to my point saying, here's Cliff again. Like you can't put him in down 16-0 because say your numbers call when you're down 16-0. You're a freshman. It's your 2nd game, and they're like, hey, you're going in, and you go in there, and you can't do any better with what's going on up front, and you go in there and you lose yards, you fumble a ball, and then they're really not going to trust you. So I think that's where you have to keep riding Adam in that game, down 16-0, just to see, where things are going. Because I wouldn't want to be thrown into a situation down 16-0, and then I go screw up, and then I'm done forever. You know what I'm saying?
I'll play devil's advocate. Devil's advocate. So I'm tired now. I will play devil's advocate a little bit with that because I think that there's for like a talent wise or a talent standpoint, I think there's a lot of value in getting real world experience. I think from a strategic and like tactical standpoint, I think sometimes it's really hard to put a player on the field when they're showing a certain level of I might need to be more gentle with this, but a certain level of incompetence due to lack of inexperience on the field. Like if they're having to constantly pull Gideon over and be like, hey, you're not doing your assignment at all, like you're in the wrong spot, you're moving your feet the wrong way. Like if linebackers are breezing by him like almost untouched on pass pro, if he's not cutting on his routes in the right spot, if he's not in the right spot for Cade, like I think there is an element of like we have to be able to like call a play and know that the 11 guys are at least going to do their jobs. And I think that a freshman coming in and not being ready. I said this last week. I've said this in an article too. Like freshmen sometimes come in and they're just incompetent to the complexities of a college offense, and doesn't mean they're not a good player. I think it just takes longer for some players. I think Gideon could still be an incredible cornerstone piece for Clemson in his next 3 to 4 years here, or 5 years, whatever it is here. But I think that like if he's not ready, even though we don't run the most intricate, complex offense in college football, it's still more than what he saw in high school. So for him to not be ready 2 weeks in, and I think there's a chance he could be incompetent and unplayable right now and still elite in the future.
Yeah, could be. It'd be interesting to see what they do going forward and see if the playbook opens up a little bit. But I do want to touch just a few minutes on the defense before we move on and talk about the Georgia Tech game a little bit. You know, on paper, the defense the numbers were pretty decent. I think 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, but a lot of that production came in the second half. To your eyes, did it still look like that the defense was getting pushed around at least in the first half far more by Troy than they should have ever been getting pushed around?
I wouldn't necessarily say pushed around, but I will say we were giving up a lot of yards. Passing 19 for 31, 223 yards, 1 touchdown, but he did have 3 interceptions. Should have had 4. Ronan Hannafin should have had 2 interceptions. He dropped that one wide open one, if you remember that. But yeah, like Cliff said down here in the comment, you know, the defense is winning games for us, and I agree totally. One guy I'm been really happy with is Ricardo Jones, man. He's been all over the field flying. Ronan Hannafin, like I just said, with a couple of interceptions. You know, we're gonna get into this Georgia Tech game in a minute, but I think this team, you know, like I said, I would rather not play our best ball against Troy. I'd rather keep, you know, figure it out. Thank God it's only week 2. Plenty of football left in the season, and you know, we'll get in that Georgia Tech game in a second. But I do think that the defense is winning games for us, and you know, kind of letting that offense think about everything going on, because the offense looked like total garbage that first half, and I was ready to leave, but I was like, you know, I'm gonna stick it out. I'm a diehard Clemson fan. You know, the people that were in the stadium were the people who really cared, in my opinion. So, but we'll see.
And Caden, you know, I think Dabo he maybe even had a little joke or quip about this in his post-game press conference, but you could hear it. And Cole, I'm sure you could confirm this. You were actually there and you stayed, but you could audibly hear the boos raining down, even through the TV. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I don't know that I have ever heard a crowd at Death Valley boo for any other reason than to boo the visiting team. That is how bad, that is how low it had sunk to by that point. And thank God they turned it around and won, because I shudder to think about what the Clemson fan base would have done as a whole had Troy won that game.
No, I mean, it would have been one of the App State Michigan game of like 20 years ago. Like that I forget what year that was, but that game might have
07.
preceded 07. I was 2 years old. I've known about the game my whole life. Like that game is like this game would have gone down into the 2050s. They'd be talking about the Clemson Troy game in 2025. So I'm glad we didn't make history in the worst possible way, obviously. And then I want to go back to the defense for a second and talk about that really quick. I think we really just held them to 9 points. They had the weirdest pick six I've seen in a long time. But in general, I didn't love how we played at all. I think we played very streaky. I think we had a lot of players, like every now and then they'd wake up and be like, oh yeah, I'm a elite player, a first round prospect. And they'd make big plays. I saw Will Held had a great game. Sammy Brown was in there a lot. And TJ Parker on the stat sheet had a pretty good game. I'd love to see his pressure rate at some point if I could. But the secondary was okay at times, but I feel like, yeah, Troy was moving the ball way too easily throughout the entire game. Way too many open looks. I feel like Goose was attacking down the field more than I feel like Cade was throughout the entire game. And it was very disappointing to see. And then, Cole, like you said, we don't have to, or I don't want to see our best ball of the season against Troy, but I want to have seen us play really good, stable ball for an entire game so I can feel confident in the rest of the season. That's kind of what you were talking about last week. It's like, I'm talking about we just want to blow them out. We just want to show that we are an elite team. We are a blue chip team. And while we didn't have to play at our best, and I honestly, I liked how the defense played against LSU. So I guess we have seen our defense play well, but seeing vulnerability in the defense after not really seeing much to be happy about in the offense at all is definitely disheartening for sure.
Yeah. I wanted just to touch on something real quick. I don't know. I'm no coach, but there's something on defense that we run, and I saw it a couple times yesterday where TJ Parker and Will Held both come off the field at the same time. And that cannot happen, in my opinion. One of them has to be on the field at all times. They can't both come off at the same time. And it's like every time they both come off, it was a big play. I'm not hating on the backups or anything, but there's never should be a situation where your two best edges are off the field.
Yeah, and Caden, I'll throw this in too, and then my last thought on the defense. Then we're going to move on and talk about Georgia Tech, but I need to see more production out of Peter Woods than what we've seen in the first two games, because it seems like he hasn't been too much of a factor. And I mean, this is a guy that's projected as a top 10 first-round NFL draft pick, and we haven't even heard his name called too terribly much because he's invisible out there in the first two games. Somebody that big and that talented should not be invisible.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we get so many elite 5-star recruits that come in and out and stuff, and I feel like there's and this is no full disrespect to anyone. Okay, everyone I'm going to name was a really good player for Clemson, but some of them end up being Austin Bryant, Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, and some of them are a more of a Miles Murphy, more of a Ruka Roro type. And again, those are all quality starters or better, but I think that Parker, Will Help might be elite, iconic players that we talk about for a long time. Peter Woods, I mean, he had 3 sacks last year. He was decently impactful. He lost the weight, and he's still young. He's still a junior, but I think his potential and expectations as a prospect is pushing a lot of his how we feel about him right now more so than his production. And so another take, I hope ages poorly, obviously, but I haven't seen him like electrify the defense so far in his career to the point that I expected after he was a 4-time state champion and 5-star prospect out of high school.
Yeah, and we see flashes of it. And Anthony said he dropped a comment in, and he said he has to disagree that the stat sheet doesn't always show what Peter Woods does. And that can sometimes be the case with an interior defensive lineman. They might not always get the tackles or the sacks, but they open up those A and B gaps, which lets your linebackers get through, and then your edge rush guys get around, and they wind up with a lion's share of the tackles. And I do agree with that, but it just seems like, to me, we should still hear his name being called more than what we do. But that's just me.
I agree.
So it's easy to say what somebody is or isn't doing when we're just watching from a TV screen. But
for sure.
So let's move on and talk about Georgia Tech. But before we do, we want to drop in and say, give a shout out to our longest sponsor, Arden's Burger Grill in Central South Carolina. If you're hungry, go see our friends at Arden's. They have everything you need to stock your pregame tailgate, including the best wings, burgers, and hot dogs around. So go get filled up, get your pregame tailgate needs taken care of by our good friends at Arden's Burger Grill in Central South Carolina, and tell them the crew from Around the Paul sent you. All right, Georgia Tech. This is a team that, coming into the season, when you look at the schedule, you kind of circled this game because this Yellow Jackets program has kind of been on the come up in recent years. This is a game that, honestly, guys, scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was just looking up because I seen yesterday where I think we opened up as like a 7.5-point favor. But now looking at the ESPN app, Clemson is now a 9.5-point favor at Georgia Tech. After playing how we did yesterday in that first half, and then, kind of seeing, 5 straight scoring drives in the second half, them appreciating the fans that actually stayed yesterday. And it does mean something to them. Little people don't understand stuff like that, but it does. I think this Clemson team comes out fired up in Atlanta Saturday. I'm not expecting us to blow anybody out or anything, but I think this week of practice they're going to treat this week's of practice as if we lost that game with Troy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't know this until actually just about an hour and a half ago, but Georgia Tech starting quarterback did not play this last week. And I think from what I understand, they said he could have, but it was against a game it was against an opponent they were going to win anyway. So they're saving him for this week.
Aaron Philo started that game.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Faxon from the Roar is a huge Aaron Philo guy, so he thinks he's better than Haynes King. So,
really?
He does.
I haven't seen enough of Philo, but that seems King is incredible. Yeah,
I didn't know that, Gary. That's actually a good point you bring it up too, because he was 21 for 28, 373 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So, Gardner Webb.
That's
in
solid.
Troy.
Even against Gardner Webb, look,
Yeah, it's still solid. I mean,
that's a solid game.
373 in the air is impressive no matter who you play.
Yeah.
But this Georgia Tech team, and I think we would all agree that they're good offensively. Yeah, they can put points up in bunches. But the flip side of that is I'm really not sold that they're all that great defensively. I think at best they're probably just average defensively. So this is a game that if the offensive line can play well, if they can gel, if they can give K time, establish the running game. It goes back to that running game. You have to get that going early. If Clemson is able to run the ball early and do it effectively, I do think this is a game where the Tigers could come out and have some earlier offensive success than we've seen in the first two games, put some points on the board early, and maybe get Georgia Tech back on their heels a little bit.
I absolutely agree. I think that, and this is really painful to say because 2 weeks ago it was Klubnik and Nussmeier was like an incredible QB matchup and a very competitive rivalry between two like Heisman contenders. Now in Atlanta at Georgia Tech, I almost dare to say that Haynes King is a great like litmus test, a great threshold for Cade, where it's like if Haynes King goes out there and looks genuinely better than Klubnik throughout this entire game, then I think that I've seen enough to have major concerns about Klubnik's like career potential throughout this season. But I think that we have a really good defense to match up against someone like King. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's not known for attacking down the field. He's surprised us with his ability to do so at times, but he's much more of a threat in the running game. And I still believe in our front seven. I mean, I think our front seven, I said they were flashy, but I think the talent is still absolutely there. Sammy Brown's been amazing. Will Helt's been amazing. Wade Woodhouse has, I think, been very effective. I think that we match up well to where if Haynes King can't run, Georgia Tech is Georgia Tech of 5 years ago. I think they're just an irrelevant franchise. I think that's a huge element to who they are. I think their defense isn't that great. I didn't think LSU's defense was that great either. And I mean, so I've been pretty underwhelmed. I need to see it. I said it last week. I need to see it to believe it for Cade Klubnik. But I think this is the game where we do go to Atlanta and I'm not saying it's a blowout at 2, but I think we're going to surprise people a little bit. I think we're going to shut down Georgia Tech pretty easily. I don't think the game's going to be close at any point. I think we're going to win by a few possessions. And I think this is the game where Clemson University might be divided on this team. I think some people might buy right back in and some people might remain skeptical. But I think that if everyone's feeling down right now, I think it's going to become a little bit divided in opinions after this game. That's kind of my early prediction.
Are we so Garrett, you said, I mean, obviously looking at the stat sheet, Haynes King did not play a snap in that ball game, but are we sure Haynes King isn't hurt?
No, he is banged up, and that's why he didn't play against Gardner Webb. So the prevailing thought was that they were saving him for Clemson. They didn't want to risk him re-aggravating an injury against Gardner Webb.
Yeah. So I think that's a plus for us. Obviously, their quarterback's not healthy. So go out there, get some, if our defense can get some early pressure on that offense. Yep. I've seen Haynes King play for 2 years now at Georgia Tech. I didn't really pay attention to him much before that. But he likes to get banged up like after almost every play. Like when he gets up, he's not getting up easily. Like he's hurting. So if that's a guy that we can, limit off the field.
Hit him and hit him often. Hit him early and often.
But apparently this Philo kid's pretty good too. So we'll see how it is. But I know, like Caden said and how I said earlier, I don't think we're going to come in here and blow Georgia Tech out. Georgia Tech's a really good team, 2-0. Played Colorado on the road and won that with 3 turnovers in the first quarter. And they're a really good offense. Really, I like Brent Key, their head coach. I think he's the man for the program to run that team. But I think this Clemson team comes out fired up. That's an embarrassing performance versus Troy, and they know that. And like I said, they're treating this week of practice as if we lost that game. So I can't wait to go to Atlanta and see this matchup. I think it's going to be a great one. I think it's going to be a sold-out crowd. It sucks it's a 12 o'clock game. I know I love night games no matter where you play, but I think that 12 o'clock game is going to be in our favor.
And Anthony dropped this comment in, and good point. Georgia Tech has through 2 games, the 82nd ranked rush defense in the country. That's not great. This is a game where I think the Georgia Tech defensive front can be had in terms of Clemson running the ball. And if you do that, then I agree with Cole. You have the opportunity to put a lot of points on the board. And I'm hoping that this is the game, 3rd game of the year, where everything finally clicks and it all gets put together.
I agree. And then like Cole said earlier too, like Haynes King, if he's banged up, I mean, he's maybe the only quarterback in the ACC that will look at Will held right in front of him and lower his shoulder. And I mean, maybe that's tough and that's a likable trait, but strategically, like that might not bode well for him throughout 4 quarters and stuff. So yeah, and then the defense, I don't know a ton about Georgia Tech's defense, which I mean, I'm glad they're 82nd rush defense and stuff. I think that bodes well for us too. I mean, just like them, I've never been scared of a Georgia Tech defense, to my knowledge. I might be wrong, but um, yeah, I'm not super worried about the defensive side of the ball, and I think we can neutralize Haynes King, and maybe I'm not as scared of this game as I should be. I've heard a lot of people talk about how it should be pretty brutal, but I think we match up well against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, I have actually been to a Clemson Georgia Tech game at Bobby Dodd, and it's an interesting experience. The stadium, of course, is right in downtown Atlanta. Parking is not great. If my memory serves, this was in 2016. So if my memory serves, I think my friend and I parked maybe at the Varsity across I-85. But interestingly enough, we had decided to get tickets once we got there, and we bought 2 tickets, and they wound up being fake.
Ooh.
We got scammed. So luckily, we had both just got paid from work, and we went to the box office at Bobby Dodd Stadium, and they still had tickets remaining. And so we were still able to get 2 tickets and get in, which hindsight, we should have probably done that to begin with. But it was one of those Thursday night games, and so it wasn't a completely sold out crowd. And of course, it was Deshaun Watson. Clemson came in. They did their thing, and they handled Georgia Tech pretty easily that night. But so it's an interesting experience seeing a game at Georgia Tech.
I love going to Georgia Tech. That's like, I know it's not a crazy atmosphere, but I've always said that's one of my favorite road games. Like them, Georgia Tech's a fun one. Obviously, Wake Forest is a nice stadium, but it's not a crazy atmosphere. But Georgia Tech's atmosphere is not as bad as people think.
It's not.
It's not. And I think where the stadium's placed at downtown, they've done some renovations there. They got a nice venue, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Caden, have you ever been to a game at Bobby Dodd or not yet?
I haven't. Yeah, I can't speak on it much, but I need to check it out. I've been to Atlanta. I've been to Braves, Hawks, Falcons, but I've never been to Georgia Tech. So I got to check it out.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I always love seeing different venues away from Death Valley. I would still say Virginia Tech is my favorite that I've been to. I think we were talking about that before the show last week. Just incredible venue, especially for big games. The people at Louisville, I've been to Louisville. That they're actually super nice people up there. We had a really good time there. And then myself, Cliff, and Anthony, we were lucky enough to be able to go out to Austin, Texas last year for the playoff game. And, that was despite the loss, was actually a pretty incredible experience. We were within 10 feet of Matthew McConaughey, close enough to hear and talk. So that was all pretty cool. So, yeah, it's great to get out and see different venues. But hopefully Clemson Tigers go into Bobby Dodd on Saturday and we can get it done. So let's throw out some score predictions as we wrap this show up, and we'll go right to left. Caden, we'll start with you. What you got?
I'll go 24-13. I think the offense is going to look we're not going to look like we're back, but I think we're going to look a lot more competent. I think the defense is going to look awesome, and we're going to hold them to 13 points.
Right, I'm gonna give you 2. I'm gonna give you what I want it to be and what I think it'll be. What I want it to be like 45-17. But what I really think it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be like a 28-17 kind of game, 28-21.
All right. I'm going to go on the higher side from both of your predictions. I do think the offense. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the offense gets rolling a little bit more in this game. Clemson will have their season high in points, but I also think that Georgia Tech's probably going to score slightly more than LSU and Troy did. So I think Clemson wins. I'm going to say 35-24. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That'd be okay.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you what. Ugly first half against Troy, flushed it. Second half looked like real Clemson football, came away with a win. And like they say, an ugly win is better than a pretty loss. So I think I'll speak for all of us and say we'll take it any day of the week.
We got to throw an Ants prediction down here in the comments.
Oh, yeah. All right.
What do you say?
Yeah. Cole, you tell everybody what Anthony's saying.
You know, I didn't think I'd expect him to say this, but Anthony has predicted the Yellow Jackets 24-17.
Shame.
Can we pull Anthony up on stage? Can we face him?
He needs to come. No, he needs to show.
He needs to say that
and explain himself.
Hiding behind the screen.
It's a reverse psychology. He's doing us a
guest
favor.
appearance.
Yeah, he's jinxing Georgia Tech.
He does not have a video.
That's convenient.
All right. Well, we'll just say if this happens, we'll blame Anthony. Anthony said 24-17 Georgia Tech. Boo.
Cliff's got 31-21 Tigers. So
all right, there you go. That's better. So 4-1. Four of us think Clemson's going to win, and there's always a critic in every crowd, right?
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Around the Paw. As always, we appreciate everybody tuning in. It's been a great response for the first few episodes this year. We sure do appreciate it. Once again, shout out to Arden's Burger Grill. Best food around. Go see them before the game or anytime is a good time to go to Arden's. We love the wings, burgers, hot dogs. Everything's good. You can't go wrong at Arden's. So go see them and tell them we sent you. And for myself, I'm Garrett Mitchell, along with Cole Gerard and Cade Hughes. That's all for us on this episode of Around the Pulse. As always, we sign off by saying Godspeed, God bless, good luck, and go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
It's around the ball, around the ball. It's around the ball, the Ball Clemson podcast. It's around the ball, around the ball. It's around the ball, the Ball Clemson podcast. It's around the ball.